Welcome everybody to the Johnson Matthey Platinum Group Metals Conference, Critical to the Future of Sustainable Technology. So what is the role of PGMs in the future technologies, or those technologies that are going to allow us to have a beautiful, sustainable and successful future as human beings on our wonderful planet? My name is Dr. Sarah Gordon. Now, before we get started, or basically the bit that you have all been waiting for, because of course this is a conference, and Emma, I'm going to invite you to maybe say some words against this particular slide, because of course this is a Johnson Matthey conference. There is a little bit of a legal disclaimer we need to flash up at the beginning in front of you. We will put this into chat as well if any of you want to read this in detail. Okay, so our final presenter that we have for you in this session is the fantastic Martin, and Martin is going to share his slides now, and what we're going to go into is we're going to hear a little bit around this PFAS landscape. Now, you heard earlier on from Moritz the complexity, or I guess to be completely frank, the confusion with regards to what's going on in the PFAS world. And I have immense faith that Martin is going to be able to explain it to us. So by the end of this talk, we're all going to be experts, or at the very least, actually understand what on earth is going on. So everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Martin. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Great to be here. Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Martin Antal, and I'm a policy officer here at Hydrogen Europe, which is the association for all things hydrogen in Europe. And I will be talking about this PFAS issue that we are having. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times today already. You might have heard it, you might not have heard it. But you will definitely hear about more today and in the near future. So about Hydrogen Europe, if you're not aware, we are the industry association for all things hydrogen, comprising the entire value chain of the European hydrogen industry, from production to distribution, all the way to end users, so mobility, industrial applications, but we also comprise a lot of EU regions and most of the hydrogen associations around the continent. Our vision is to propel global carbon neutrality by accelerating the European hydrogen industry. So we are trying to help the European hydrogen industry to ramp up. I think there's no need to introduce the hydrogen industry. I think there has been a ample discussion by the previous panelists. So I think it's good to get an introduction of what are PFAS and where are they used and why this is sort of a central question to the hydrogen industry and to decarbonization efforts all around the globe, but especially on the continent right now. So what are PFAS? I don't know if the actual word has been mentioned yet, but and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's a nice tongue twister. They are fluorinated synthetic substances. The actual number is not known, actually. There has been a couple of calculations in the previous decades. There are some that think there are 4,700 different substances. According to the OECD, it could be over 10,000 different substances with very, very diverse properties. You have polymers, you have non-polymers. There are solids, liquids, gases, persistent, non-persistent substances. There are some that are highly reactive. There are others that are inert. There are mobile, insoluble substances. And of course, there is a wide range of toxicity regarding these substances. They've been used since the 1950s, and they are being used for their very specific properties that are incredibly useful for industrial, but also for consumer goods. And it's because of the carbon fluoride bond, the CF bond, which is of course, the strongest between the carbon atom and another one. And it really brings extreme stability, inertness, and persistence. That's why they are named as forever chemicals. I think this is the term that everybody has heard in the past few years. And on the right side of the slide, you can see a lot of industrial applications, and also other uses. So anything from aerospace through electronic devices, even the wood industry, or of course the oil and gas industry. If you can think about a sector, it's probably PFAS being used in that sector. This is a very very difficult to understand slide, but this is the OECD definition of or a chart regarding the variety of PFAS substances. And what I want you to pay attention to is the fluoropolymers, which is something that I will be talking about in the next slides. So you can see that fluoropolymers are just one sort of group or family of PFAS. And it only comprises a couple dozen of the substances out of the tens of thousands of different PFAS. And this is what already has been mentioned today. There is a wide-ranging, a wide number of different PFAS, and some of them are molecules, some of them are polymers. That there is a need to distinguish between these. It's also important to really understand why these fluoropolymers. So I'm going to talk about fluoropolymers only, because fluoropolymers are the type of PFAS that are essential in the hydrogen industry. So from now on, I will be discussing fluoropolymers and not all types of PFAS. So why are they important? They are used all over the hydrogen industry. And I will give you a very particular example regarding their use in a fuel cell. So as has been mentioned previously, a membrane, a ionomer, is central to the hydrogen industry, central to a stack, and central to producing hydrogen, but also for fuel cells. And in the membrane, the PFSA ionomer is reinforced by a PTFE. So fluoropolymers are very inherent and essential to the functioning of the fuel cell, and this is used by all companies, by all technologies, and what it gives, what the fluoropolymer really provides, is very high quality and durability and hydrophobic nature, which really on this scale, and regarding the industrial scale, but also regarding sizes of this, cannot be really substituted by anything else right now. So you can see on the slide that the membrane has fluoropolymers, the gas diffusion layer has fluoropolymers, the microporous layers have fluoropolymers, and all of these are very essential. There's no known alternative. It has been researched and surveyed in the industry for decades, mostly because they are still quite valuable and quite expensive. So of course, if the industry had found something that's a good substitute, the industry would have jumped on it already. But it is not possible right now. So you have the stack itself, but also in sealing materials and all the way through the value chain, gaskets, but also in distribution networks, linings, fluoropolymers are everywhere. This slide really illustrates that. We've undertook quite an extensive value chain assessments in the previous year, and we realized that all the way in the left side, so from the hydrogen production side, you can see that in every technology, so alkaline, anion exchange, PEM, but also solid oxide, electrolysis technologies utilize fluoropolymers and in quite essential places, not really as for example consumer goods do, but very inherently essential places. In the middle, you can see that also in hydrogen transport and distribution storage uses, fluoropolymers, PTFE, PFSA, PEEK, they're being widely used in underground caverns, gasification, but also in methanol and ammonia production, and also in the end uses, especially in mobility. So you would not really have e-mobility or fuel cell-based mobility ramped up without fluoropolymers. This is also quite a big issue for other mobility sectors as well. So even in internal combustion mobility, it highly depends on substances, on fluoropolymers. So you can see the extent of this issue. So this is also to illustrate that. So beyond PEM and beyond the hydrogen industry, fluoropolymers are central to also net zero sectors. So batteries, semiconductors, but also in water management, water treatment, electricity grid insulation, aerospace and defense, but also in heat pumps and medical equipment. They are currently the industry standard and the top of the line. So what is actually the problem? I know it's a bit dramatic, but it really is an issue that is dawning on the industry and on all net zero technologies. So 5 national agencies. So in the EEA, Netherlands, Germany, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark have put forward a restriction proposal under the REACH, so the EU's chemical framework, regarding the banning of all PFAS substances with an 18-month transition period after the entry into force. So potentially, so very roughly, this could mean that all PFAS are banned from 2025, 2026 onwards. With some caveats, but this would mean that the ban of manufactured, placing on market, and the use of all PFAS materials and all PFAS containing some components would be banned in the next years. As for the caveats, there are some limited derogations for very limited number of sectors. For example, refrigerants in HVAC and PFAS used as an active ingredient in medical equipment. This is mostly because they already have regulation that's more strict and that enables them to function in very limited cases. There are no exemptions apart from biodegradable PFAS, and there are 5 or 12-year derogations for very specific uses. So this is what I will be talking about. But the actual rationale of the restriction is, of course, the issue with deformable chemicals. Of course, this is obvious that there's an issue with PFAS, and with tens of thousands of substances, there's going to be a high number that have the necessary toxicity or bioaccumulation potential that has to be tackled. and we agree with this. We agree with the idea of a PFAS ban. There is, of course, you have to take you have to make differences between the various PFAS. But the rationale of the dossier submitters was that because regrettable substitutions have been present in the past, there has been a very particular PFAS substances banned, which caused the substitution of those substances with other PFAS substances, which have proved to be more problematic. That's why the blanket ban seems to be a solution taken by these five national agencies. What is important to notice here is that what I mentioned with the fluoropolymers, they are a PFAS subgroup. Of course, they have the CF bond. They're only persistent, and but they meet the OECD's polymer of low concern criteria. And it's important to note that the persistency is why the industry is using it. So without the persistency, these substances would not be useful for the industry. So durability, strength, and the high quality of these materials are necessary for the hydrogen industry and for a lot of other industries. However, they are not treated differently in the proposal. Regarding the hydrogen industry, of course, this is something that we are familiar with. The industry would get a full ban after the 18-month transition, except for fluoropolymers for use in PEM fuel cells until an extra 5 years. So the only derogation that would be provided for the hydrogen industry would be for PEM fuel cells, so a very slim slice of the whole industry, and even that for 5 extra years. Although this PEM derogation would include the upstream of the value chain of the of PEM fuel cells. Of course, I think it's very obvious that this would still have a detrimental effect for the hydrogen industry. All the investment that's currently being poured into the industry, that would become problematic in the future, because it is difficult to see who would invest into the technology whereby the core of the industry, the core of the instruments that are core of the industry are banned by the EU. So it is important to see that the proposal itself acknowledged that fluoropolymers are being used in various components in PEM fuel cells, but also in PEM electrolyzers and even non-PEM electrolyzers. And the proposal acknowledged that there are no viable alternatives today. Still, only a 5-year derogation for PEM fuel cells were provided. So this is quite a large issue going forward, and something that I think everyone in the hydrogen sphere needs to be aware of. Especially because if you look at the alternatives, even the alternatives that the proposal sort of mentioned, it is obvious that in the next 18 months, or even in the next 5 years, or even in the next 12 years, which the proposal provides for, there's not a realistic alternative that can prove to be useful for immediate replacements in the hydrogen industry. Regarding the restriction on fluoropolymers, it would render several critical applications unfeasible, because the alternatives, the performance of these alternatives, for example, the hydrogen carbon membranes, which is mentioned multiple times, and you might have heard about it, is still very, very low. We have had members that have done a variety of tests, especially in the previous years, and the stability and the durability was extremely low, lasting only dozens of hours against expected timelines of or lifetimes of tens of thousands of hours, which would be needed to justify the investment. Of course, there's potential for research, including hydrocarbon membranes, but if you take into account the KPIs that have to be hit, it's not feasible in the very short time frame that the dossier submitters put forward. So this means that, of course, if the proposal goes into effect as it is now, that would render the hydrogen strategy, but also larger climate change abatement goals, and the overall Green Deal and the REPowerEU goals unfeasible by the time frame. This would mean, of course, that tens of billions of euros worth of investments would be declining very significantly, up to 200,000 direct jobs and around the same indirect jobs within 10 years. So until 2030 would be cancelled or moved elsewhere, also reducing the competitiveness of the EU. And of course, the climate side targets would be unfeasible. And if you look at a bit longer term, of course, a market with a value of 800 billion would be dramatic to scale, really. So the key messages from our side is that the proper functioning of electrolyzers and fuel cells and really other technologies across the whole value chain rests on the essential use of polymers, which is of course a PFAS category. No alternatives are come close to hitting the necessary KPIs right now, and even though research can play a role, no fluorine-free breakthrough is foreseen in the near future. There are, of course, environmental and human health risks with fluoropolymers, but they are extremely limited. And we argue that incentivization of limiting emissions and fostering of recovery of materials, sort of connecting to the previous presentation, would be the best practice going forward. And not exempting the use of fluoropolymers would be highly problematic and detrimental to the industry, to the scale of to the ramp up of this industry. So regarding the sort of next steps or what we have in the near future, there is a consultation by the European Chemical Agency going on right now. So I encourage everyone that's invested in this sector or invested in any industrial sector really to have a look and to provide inputs. The chemical agency needs to, or legally obliged to look at all the inputs. And of course, they've been getting thousands up until now, of course, because this issue touches on every industrial sectors. The deadline of this is the 25th of September. So of course it's very, very short, very tight. We as Hydrogen Europe have been providing a lot of input in the previous years since this whole restriction process has been going on. And we also submitted our first input back in May, and we will be giving a second input by the deadline. We're also undertaking a PFAS emission testing exercise with a number of our members because of course this is a topic that has grown a lot inside our membership and inside of the industry. So it's very important to actually know our sector. So sorry if that was a bit gloomy, but I think it's a very important important topic. And if there are any questions and if we have time, then I'm happy to stay on.
Martin, thank you so much for that, for giving a talk that is about an incredibly, well, it should be simple, but it's incredibly complicated topic, and it's one that is incredibly pertinent right this second. So round of applause, please, everybody, for the fabulous Martin.